Chirp, and I am here today to give you a little hint about early language development and early childhood when your kid is first starting to speak. Now, you may have an older child who has emerging language skills, who is just starting to use words. In that case, this video will be helpful to you as well. I want to talk about something called core vocabulary. Core vocabulary. The reason I want to talk about this is because too many times we do one of two things, I guess. We move in one of two directions. The first is speaking to kids as if they were adults. The other one is not speaking to kids much at all because we think they can't understand. Both of those are a mistake. And now let's zoom in and speak specifically about kids with language delays, communication delays, cognitive delays, kids who have developmental delays of some kind, because those always include communication delays or a delay in those skills developing. Sometimes they develop strangely. This is what we mean by disorder. So normally skills will develop 1, 2, 3, 4. And if a child should be age-wise at a 5, but is at a 2, but 1 and 2 happened in an appropriate order, that is what we call a communication delay. And it's possible for those kids to catch up, to get to where they should be, and that's what we aim to help happen when we get early intervention services going as fast as we can. A disorder is when a child should be at level 5, is at level 3, but totally skipped level 2. That is not the same thing, because a lot of times families will think, and sometimes even teachers, that this child is at a level 3. That means he has mastered all of the skills that come before level 3. And if it's a disorder, that's not the case. And we have to go back and we have to make sure that he can do all of level 1 skills and all of level 2 skills. Because just because he's at level 3 doesn't mean he can do everything that came beforehand. That is what we call a disorder, when things develop out of sequence. Once again, we work on that in early intervention. As soon as we find out that there's a delay or a disorder, we jump right in there, and that's how we make the most progress. That's how we help the kids the best. Holding back and not doing anything doesn't help anyone, except for it is a little comforting because we can stand in denial for a little bit longer, and denial can be very comforting. However, I encourage you not to do that, even though it's hard, because your kids will make better progress the earlier you begin. Now that we have said that, let us talk again about core vocabulary. I told you about the two different routes that people can take. Talking to their kids with developmental delays or disorders as if they are adults, and not speaking much to their kids at all because they don't believe their kids can understand them. And as I said, both of those are a mistake. What we want to do is we want to have a core group of words, nouns and verbs, mostly, nouns being object words like ball or table or juice, and verbs being action words like throw or jump. We want to have a core group of those words, maybe starting out with just 10, and we use those very, very heavily with our kids who have developmental delays or disorders. What this does is it allows them to hear these words tons and tons and tons of times. It allows them to watch your mouth as you're making them. It allows them to watch the mouths of other people in their vicinity as those people are making those words. And it gives them a chance to practice the sequencing required for the brain to tell the mouth how to make those sounds, and it gives the child lots of opportunities. Imagine you are learning a foreign language, which many of our kids with any sort of developmental delay, verbal language is like learning a foreign language to them. It has to be very purposefully taught, and we can do that better when we teach a small vocabulary chunk at a time. If you did learn a foreign language, you probably didn't just get exposed to the whole language all at once, and yet your teacher still gave you some words. Usually, it's a list of certain words, and these are the words that we're going to be focusing on in the next chapter of this language. That's what we want to do for our kids too. That is what a core vocabulary is. Of course, we don't want to pick a core vocabulary chunk from someone else's kid or what someone did with their child. We want to pick based on what's important to this particular child. You want to make sure that the words that you're choosing are words that are going to be meaningful because they are motivating to your particular child. So if your daughter loves her cat, her toy cat, cat should be one of those words. Her favorite snack should be one of those words. Carrot. Water should probably be one of those words, whether it's because your child likes to play in the water or whether it's because your child wants a glass of water or her water bottle. We want to make sure that we repeat those words lots of times. It helps to have pictures of those core words. I've discussed this a lot in my most recent series on communication books. It helps if you're going to use the pictures of particular words that are motivating to your child in the communication book. It helps to also have those be words that you're talking about all the time. I don't want you to get the idea that once you focus in on particular words that you want to really use heavily, that you can't use any other words, because that's not very helpful. We just want to particularly reuse a lot and focus on a lot and put special verbal emphasis on the words that we decide are part of this core vocabulary. A little girl that I worked with many, many years ago, I'll tell you partially how old I am. She was 3 when I started working with her, and she is now 19. And it's completely shocking. She had pretty significant delays due to an autism spectrum disorder when she was little teeny. Still, it's very noticeable that she has autism, but she has learned tons and tons and tons of skills. She's very social, she's hilarious, and she's incredibly lovable. And she has been since she was teeny. She's just the cutest thing. Well, I discovered just by interacting with her on a play-based level, I worked with her in her school and in her home as well, so I got to know her really well over the years. I learned when she was 3, she liked getting up on stuff and jumping off. And so jump was clearly one of the words that I wanted to include in this core vocabulary with her. So we would go outside in her backyard, and she would get up on a little tiny brick wall. It was about this high, just a few inches up. It was like a planter border thing. And she would get up there, and then I would hold her hands and get really excited and say, 3, 2, 1, jump! And then I would lift her really high and crash her on the ground. Jump was one of her first words that she ever verbally spoke because of this type of game. It was motivating to her. It was a reciprocal sort of interaction. I wouldn't lift her up and have her jump unless she looked at me. So it was social. There were circles of communication. I would say something, she would do something. I would do something, she would do something. And that was motivating to her. And so that's why I included that word. Crash was one of her favorite things and one of the words that she learned very early on, because she liked to take a car or a toy and crash it into another car or a toy. And so I would say, crash! These kind of activities are where our kids latch on emotionally to words and therefore have an easier time learning, remembering, and producing them on their own. That is your little mission for this week. Think about, what does your child like doing? Which words and what kind of affect? That means what kind of excitement can you do with your face, with your eyebrows, with your vocal volume, with your pitch? What kind of affect can you put behind those words that will make them more memorable to your child as he or she is learning to produce them himself or herself. Let me know how it goes down below. Let me know what are some of the main motivating words that your kids are really tuned into. If you say crash, does your kid look at you? If you say jump, if your kid likes jumping, is that the same with your child as it was with my little friend? I would love to know, because everything you tell me is more information that I can learn from, and I love to learn. Thanks for being here with me today. I'm proud that you too are interested in learning. This is a fun little community of people who really care about these kids, in fact, about everyone, and we want to make the world a more welcoming place for our friends who have developmental disorders or delays, and we want to make them understand this world a little bit better too. Thank you for participating in that with me. It's a fun job. I hope you have a great week. Be well, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.